With the amount of hype some prospects receive when they get drafted, especially in today's day and age, there tends to be a lot of pressure on them to perform well out of the gate, despite many of them still being teenagers or 20-year-olds that are competing against grown men for the first time. Sure, some young rookies look great from the moment they step on an NBA court, but others will take some time to adjust to the competitiveness, physicality, and long 82-game season that comes with being an NBA player. This brings us to the topic of today's video, where we will be discussing 5 young NBA players that were taken in the lottery of their drafts and hyped up to be very good players, and now, after a few seasons of development, are finally starting to look like the players many thought they could become. Before we get started though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. First up for discussion is someone that was drawing comparisons to Kevin Durant as a prospect, being Brandon Ingram of the New Orleans Pelicans. Those comparisons were always pretty ridiculous, and the ability for him to ever live up to those expectations like that was pretty much impossible, seeing as Durant is one of the best players in the history of the NBA. But that doesn't mean that Ingram wasn't able to still be a terrific player. Early in his career, especially in his first 2 seasons, the physicality of the league proved to be too much for him to handle. He was a pretty skinny kid when he first got drafted, and in a league full of grown men, his playstyle was going to have to adjust a bit. He likes to use his length to maneuver his way in the paint and finish through traffic either over or through defenders, but when you lack the strength and experience to do so like he did early on in his career, you're gonna struggle a bit. However, as you get more experience under your belt and you grow more and more accustomed to the physicality that comes with attacking the rim and playing in the paint, someone with the amount of talent Ingram has will definitely figure out how to find success in these situations. We saw glimpses of what he could become at the end of last season, and this season, he's being fully unleashed. He's averaging a hugely impressive 25 points per game so far this season, while scoring the ball an efficient 49% from the field, and most impressive of all, over 40% from 3, while taking the most attempts from 3 of his entire career. He was pegged as a potential big-time scorer ever since his days at Duke, and while it did take a bit longer than some may have thought it would take for him to be this highly productive player, he's showing the league that he has arrived and is ready to produce at a high level from here on out. Next up on this list of youngsters finally hitting their stride is someone that, coming into this season, had an incredibly negative aura around his name as a player, being Andrew Wiggins of the Minnesota Timberwolves. After 5 seasons in the league, he had seemingly declined over time, with his production taking a dip in each of the last 2 seasons, and that, combined with the fact that he was a net minus in almost every other aspect of the game, his work ethic was questioned. He was called lazy, people questioned how much he even cared about the game of basketball, and after being given a max contract, it seemed to be a popular notion that he had the worst contract in the league. All of this, by the way, for a player who, coming out of high school, was pegged as the next big thing and a future superstar. Now, he probably won't ever live up to those lofty expectations that were set for him all those years ago, but this season, something has seemed to finally click, and he's looking better than ever before. He's averaging a career-high 25 points while shooting the ball a moderately efficient 45% from the field and about league average from 3 at 35%. He's had good scoring numbers in the past, and the real issues people had with him was the rest of his game, but his previous numbers always seemed empty because while he was getting his, it never translated to wins. This season though, the Wolves are firmly in the playoff hunt while Wiggins is playing the best basketball of his career, so all in all, this seems like one of the more pleasant turnaround stories in the league, and what you have to remember is that he's still only 24 years old, so he still has a long career ahead of him. Next up for discussion is a player who, after 2 seasons, was already being labeled by people as one of the biggest busts in NBA history, being Markelle Fultz of the Orlando Magic. When Fultz was drafted, he was regarded as someone well on his way to becoming one of the best guards in the whole league, because his skill set seemed picture perfect for the NBA today. He has great size, some incredible handles, soft touch around the rim, excellent court vision and playmaking, and most importantly, the ability to pull up and shoot from anywhere on the floor. The Sixers saw this and were so intrigued that they traded up for him. But when he started playing, it was clear that something was wrong. His shot form was visibly different and not in a good way, and he almost looked like shooting jumpers was a struggle for him. As it turned out, he had been struggling with an undiagnosed shoulder injury for his first 2 years in Philadelphia, and his jumper was non-existent because of it. The Sixers were in win-now mode and didn't have the patience to wait for Fultz, so they shipped him out to Orlando, which was probably the best possible thing for Fultz because he was now in a situation with a lot less pressure and the ability to develop on his own time. As a result, this year he's won the Magic's starting point guard spot, is scoring a career-high 12 points per game on 50% shooting, and he looks more confident than ever. His three-point shot is still not quite there yet, as he's only shooting 22% from deep, but his mid-range jumper has been a reliable tool for him, so there is hope that eventually he'll be able to extend that range. Overall, he may not be the superstar he was promised to be, but it's a nice story to see him finally find his footing in the league. Next up for discussion is a player that Bill Simmons famously said was a younger version of Paul George, and people laughed at that, with that player being Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics. He may not be Paul George yet, but he's currently taking the leap as a player many thought he was going to take last year, and looks better than ever. In his first season, he had a very limited role on the team, but showed strong promise, and then in year 2, he was granted a bigger role and took full advantage of it. Year 3, which was last year, was when those high hopes for him stalled, because after a good first 2 seasons to start his career off, he took a bit of a step back as a player, seeing his production drop across the board. Last year's Celtics team as a whole was pretty dysfunctional, with problems with Kyrie Irving, Terry Rozier, Jason Tatum, and just the overall chemistry between the team on the court. Now, having replaced Rozier and Irving with Kemba Walker and a bigger role for the other guys on the team, the chemistry has been better than ever, and every player on the team is playing better than ever. Brown especially is averaging 20 points on 49% shooting, both of which are career highs. Last year, he would go stretches where he lacked any aggression and would disappear on the court, never really asserting himself, but this year, you can see a clear change in mindset, and now he's ready to attack every time he touches the ball. His handle has tightened up, he attacks the basket with a purpose, and his jumper is falling at a much higher rate. He's still only 23 years of age, and his future is certainly bright. And finally, the last player up for discussion in this video is actually Fultz's teammate, being Jonathan Isaac of the Orlando Magic. During the 2017 NBA draft, Isaac was such an intriguing prospect for teams picking in the lottery because his defensive potential was through the roof. He had the length, he had the agility, he had the instincts, and at the college level, he had the production. Transitioning to the NBA, young players are hardly ever elite defenders, so in his first few seasons, he wasn't necessarily the standout people were hoping he would be. He came in a bit skinny and definitely needed to add strength, and when it comes to playing good NBA defense, a lot of it comes with experience, which is stuff that rookies and second-year players simply don't have. Now, in year 3, Isaac is starting to become exactly what scouts thought he could be on defense, and has been a complete beast on that end of the floor so far. Of players that qualify, he currently leads the entire NBA in blocks per game, while also adding in about a steal and a half per game as well. Players shoot 5% worse when he guards them, and an astonishing 12% worse at the rim when he guards them. And with all of this being combined, he's firmly in the race to win Defensive Player of the Year. When it comes to his offense, he's also having the best year of his career here too, but that end of the floor isn't what makes him such a valuable player. He can be a reliable third or fourth option and give you double-digit scoring on a nightly basis, but as long as he continues to dominate on defense, then he's going to have a tremendous career from this point forward. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below any other young players you think are finally starting to live up to the hype. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.